Welcome to the Boring AI Show, the podcast for people who want to understand AI beyond the headlines. We talk about the useful, messy, funny, and very human side of bringing artificial intelligence into the real world. Now, here are your hosts, Tim and Tally.
All right. Hello, Boring AI Show fans. We are live at MESC 2026, and as promised, we are doing real-time updates. This conference goes from Monday the 17th to this Thursday. So this is the Tuesday the 18th Midway halfway point update. I am joined by Ken and Sandra, two directors at Mind Over Machines, also here focused on all things Medicaid tech related. So hello, Ken and Sandra.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Happy to have you join us today.
Amazing. Awesome. So we're going to go through and talk about some of the sessions that we were able to attend today and just some of the trends that we're hearing. Please note that we're doing this live at MESC, so we're actually in like a little tucked away quiet area, but there might be some background noise, so we apologize, but we wanted to get you guys real-time updates of some of our takeaways. And then we're going to do a longer episode next week for all of our final thoughts. But I'd like to go ahead and get started with Ken. We'll do a round robin around the table. And Ken, what were some of the sessions that you went to, and what were some of the key takeaways that you had for today?
Yeah, I attended the first session of the day with CMS and their kind of adoption of Agile as a methodology, but using it in kind of an oversight model for the state Medicaid agencies. So the one thing that the CMS team was noticing is that a lot of the technology explosion almost with state agencies for their technology systems is seeing quite either like a big diversity or a big growth and change in the recent years. So they're taking the Agile methodology, which is typically a software development methodology, but they're applying it more from a product and product ownership or even project management style. The one thing I really liked that they're doing is they're kind of going where the states are. They're actually saying, where is the state on their journey with their various programs? Are they hybrid? Are they agile? Are they waterfall? They're really trying to meet them where they're at, but focusing on good practices in agile, like regular meetings, raising risks faster, finding when these programs are going to come off the rails, and actually helping them with reporting and actually showing the state leadership how these programs are being effective or how they're rolling out. Cool. And they're finding from a federal level there, they actually get a lot more visibility and they can do more corrective action with states before they get into having to do things either in a derogatory stance or, like doing strikes against the state for not complying with CMS guidance. Overall, I got to catch up with the speaker later and really enjoyed a conversation with him about how they're adopting, Agile into that oversight model and how they're really focusing on fail fast techniques for these states and trying to get them onto the idea that checking in more regularly and showing progress is really important. So overall, I think CMS is doing a great job with this program. Really
cool. And I love that you said, it sounds like it's kind of customized, or the approach has been adapted for each state, depending on where they're at, and really kind of meeting them where they are.
Where they are. And that's important for states because a lot of times they can get, very mired in their processes and it's tough to get them unstuck. Right. Yeah. And I think that's where CMS coming in saying, we're not here to change everything, but we're here to help you, but we're showing you a better way of doing it.
Love that. And they're based in, fun fact, I believe Maryland as well. No?
Yep. CMS is out of the Maryland, D.C. Yeah.
Love that. Go Ravens. Okay. Sandra, what did you attend today? What were your main takeaways?
So the one I attended in the beginning was about change management. And the biggest takeaway from that one is that their approach and in the presentation that the three speakers shared is stakeholder alignment, success measures, readiness, workforce prep, and sustainment. So for me and for Mind Over Machines, it really set in that what we are doing is right along the lines of what they discussed. So it validated our approach, our the way we manage change management, stakeholder management, adoption, sustainability. The way they discussed it is a little bit different from what we are doing, but it still validates the same frameworks that they discussed. So I felt really good with that, especially going into a client meeting later where this came up in the conversation. And I just told them, I'm at the conference here, my whole team is, and this is what I learned just right now a few minutes ago. So it helped validate what we're doing with them, that client specifically. So I was able to just take what I learned and apply it immediately. So that was a great session. I took a lot of notes. I'm going to go through my notes and kind of make sense of them a little bit better. But another thing that I also learned from another session on AI is keep humans in the loop. And that also I heard in the change management one in the morning, humans always have to be involved, involving them early, listening to them, validating their feelings, and just bringing them with you on the ride was really important. So more to come on change management. I think it's a really interesting topic, especially with being a tech firm. We still need to keep humans always involved. And that's what we preach as a company. Our CIO, Tim, has always said that. And I just heard it more and validated more today. So it was a good session, and I look forward to the other sessions tomorrow. So, but yeah, those were my biggest takeaways. So
I love
really
that.
good stuff.
Yeah, and I know on the show we've talked about human in the loop before, and how it's really part of when you implement AI, humans should be part of that process. But Sandra, I really liked what you said too around also keeping the humans involved from the creation, from the start. So making sure your user groups, before you even build something, they're aware that this is even happening, that this is coming, that they're brought on for that entire journey and life cycle. I think that's really interesting.
Sandra and I shared the last session of the day where we heard the panel talking about, what does it take to actually get these tools in place? And for a state or a government agency, it can be a very challenging thing. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape that can show up. But the value is you have to have kind of two different personalities. You have to have the person that says, I'm going to push and I'm going to push and we're going to make this change. And then you also have the people to say, whoa, we need to test everything. We need to make sure we're doing things right. Yep. But the value is having those two personalities actually will get the project done. Do it right, but keep the gas going. Do not let up. And that's what we see in a lot of the AI projects with our customers is they want to see the change. They want to make sure it happens and they get the right information, but they're yearning for action and seeing results.
I love that. The person who wants to run and the person who's too afraid to crawl, they kind of find a happy walking medium.
Yeah, they balance each other out a bit.
I love that. Awesome. So I went to two different sessions. The first one I thought was really interesting. It was called Building a Data-Driven Medicaid Agency, and it was led by South Carolina. And they talked about a woman named Haley Young, talked about their experience through essentially modernizing their Medicaid enterprise system and what that modernization strategy looks like, especially as it relates to their data. And obviously, I think, every company that I've seen has some sort of, data, I don't want to say, inaccurate data, but data frustrations is I guess what I'll call it. Whether it is inaccurate, whether it's too much data they can't even digest, whether it's unreliable data or fragmented data or duplicate data. And so it was really interesting just hearing these tangible ways that the South Carolina went about, making their data more reliable and better. And so they said she broke it down into two different phases or two steps. And so step one was, where are we today? And it sounds so simple. I think every project I've worked on, there's always a mapping of where we are today. But she really broke it down in terms of making sure we're getting an accurate picture of where our data is today is so critical to any data transformation project. So that means really cataloging what are all the data that we have access to? What are those sources? Who is submitting that data? Is that data reliable and even being used? And really, she actually had I'll have to share it on the Boarding AI show or our LinkedIn page after. There was a great visual she had of how to structure and think about your data map today, so to speak, which I thought was really cool. And then step two was more of what's your future vision? Before saying let's throw AI at something, let's think about this technology solution, let's really think about why we want to get to a certain point and what it is we're trying to achieve. What's the problem we're trying to solve and what's the goal that we're moving towards. And so for them, in step one, currently today, they had fragmented data that was siloed between different teams. They had unreliable data they didn't know that they could trust. And people weren't using it effectively. They just had all this data, but they weren't actually digesting it in a real or meaningful way. So their objective in step two was to really make sure they had data literacy, so people could actually interpret the data in real meaningful ways. And it wasn't just getting data for the sake of data, but it was using the critical pieces of data they actually needed in order to get like real business decisions from it, which I thought was really, really cool. And so they ended up going on this basically 4-phase approach where they thought through their data strategy, their data governance, their data process literacy, so upskilling folks on how to actually read and interpret their data, and then going through to the what technology is best to interpret this data. But I just really like this different approach. And again, I think we talk so often of like, how do we map out where we are today, but giving tangible, I know it doesn't sound fun or exciting or flashy to like take the time to data catalog, but it's so critical for especially as we think about AI. If you're going to have AI or new technology solution, you have to have the right infrastructure and foundation to set that on, or it's not going to be useful. If your data is trash, data in, data out, or trash in, trash out.
I do love they called that out, because that is actually one part of everyone's journey in the technology space is you have to figure out how bad your data is. And it is literally going through almost therapy of like, oh, I can't be it, or this is not our data. But then when you get to the acceptance stage of it, then you realize, oh, now we have to do things in order to make it better. Right?
Yes.
And that is the groundwork, even for AI, is anything you put in there that's not in a state that you want, AI is going to train on it, and that bias shows up in those results.
Yes.
So you have to be thoughtful about what you're putting in to make sure that what you're going to get out is exactly what you're looking for.
I love that. Yeah. No, I just thought I thought it was a really great example. And I really liked, the one quote I actually took away from that session was from outputs to outcomes. So instead of just getting an output because you're supposed to, I'm supposed to be tracking this thing every month, you're actually getting valuable insights from that. So not only am I getting this information, but I can actually make use of it in a real way to maybe forecast or whatever it is. So yeah, I really, really like that. And then I went to another session later in the day just because I'm biased and live in Denver. I wanted to go to a Colorado session. And it was interesting around, how to basically make a more modular Medicaid provider call center. The one takeaway I had from that session that I really liked is, and it sounds kind of silly, but their whole thing was they started with the importance of fun. And I think that that's so critical. Even in that last example I just gave around data, making sure your data cataloging, that's not the most fun or glamorous thing, but it's needed. But if you can bring some sort of energy to that, it gets people excited, and then they can see that longer term vision where it really does pay off. So really bringing a bit of fun to something, I think it's an underrated attribute, I think. So that was my little star for that one.
That's one thing I love, I always heard from mentors in the past, work is pragmatic, not punishment.
Yes, yes.
Bring the fun, bring the enjoyment, because if we as technologists are passionate about something, they want to see that from us, right?
Yes.
They want to see us
feel
care, and they want to feel how we love working with this technology, or we love diving into it, even as nerdy or as, very technical it can sound. The value is seeing that that person cares, and now I want to learn what they do.
Absolutely. No, I think that's well said. Awesome. Well, I know we touched on some of the sessions. I just want to give another shout out that we are on the floor here. So if people listening are at MESC, please come say hi. And I guess before we close out here, Ken and Sandra, anything you're looking forward to in the rest of the sessions, later this week, or anything you've heard on the floor that you wanna call out?
So the data piece I want to call out, because we're hearing a lot from people that are stopping by our booth and saying, just saying the same things, the same takeaways. We need to look at the data. I'm helping so-and-so with their data. I'm a consultant with X, Y, and Z, and we're finding that their data doesn't work. So we have to start there. So like the data aspect is really important. So if anybody needs help with that, that's what we do as well. Not just AI, human AI upskilling. That's a big piece, but we can help you with the data. So just wanted to plug that in.
Mhm.
Data is a big item and something that we do focus on, and it's a core service that we offer. So
Awesome. I love that call out.
I mean, thematically, we've also seen a lot of interest around some of our work with our state Medicaid customer on the procurement side.
Yeah.
We've actually seen quite a bit of interest, and you can see the frustration in the people's
Yes.
faces
Yeah.
when they actually, pull the use case up and they're like, "Oh, I want this
Right.
so badly
Right.
for my procurement folks." And that is one thing that if you're having those challenges, come talk to us at booth 719, because we can
Yes.
absolutely tell you how we're approaching that, how we're working with the procurement folks, and how we're getting into their processes to try and figure out where's the right place to put these tools.
So I saw that same trend, Ken. And actually, for the viewers who aren't here, do you want to share a little bit about what we've done for procurement in the past and how, if those who are listening are interested in how we can help support your procurement process, please reach out. But Ken, if you want to share a little bit there too.
Absolutely. So we have focused on the whole process from kind of where they start on the RFP stage all the way to the end of the awarding, and even past that when you get into the protest process. The value we've added early on is being able to take in these large amounts of, 100-word RFPs or responses that come from the different vendors and discern very quickly whether they have all the right components.
Mhm.
They're not doing anything to game the system. And that was a big part of what was helping the procurement team, is finding all the words where they're not supposed to be using that, or if there's a theme or something kind of smells funny,
Mhm.
helping them find that, right? And it could be buried in the language in, different sections. We even found it buried in parts of people's resumes that they were putting as the team members, right?
Mhm.
So it is helping them kind of work through, how do we make sure we have a good RFP? We're playing fair by the rules, because that is
Yes.
important
Playing
for these
fair is
state,
key. Yes.
these state Medicaid agencies, because they don't want to have the downstream process be disrupted through just small little errors.
Yeah.
So they're finding a lot of value in being able to discern that quickly with these tools and then move that on to the next stage. Again, humans are always in that loop, but the value is getting through at a quicker pace and with higher accuracy
Yes.
and more
reliability.
semantic understanding, not just find dollars, find, these terms, find those terms. It's actually doing a little bit more smells like test.
Yes. I love that. I think that's well said. Awesome. Well, on that note, I'm really excited for the next 2 days that we have ahead. Unfortunately, we can't, there's only so many of us, so we can't hit every session, but they are recording a lot of these sessions. So I know I personally have a lot of sessions I want to listen to following this, live event. And then once we kind of compile all of our notes and gather all of that data, we're hoping to have a larger episode that will air next week. That will be a much larger, more in-depth takeaway episode. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for tuning in. And thank you, Ken and Sandra, for giving your insights. And hopefully you guys found this valuable.
Absolutely.
Don't hesitate to reach out.
All right.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks for joining us on the Boring AI Show. Practical AI minus the hype. Subscribe, share it with someone on their own AI journey, and we'll see you next time.